Good evening. It is another glorious book club live, and we are here today with the amazing Jennipher M Zulu from Zambia. Um, and on this wintry night in Zimbabwe, it's been raining all of a sudden, late, or rather in Harare, it was raining late. We are going to be having a cozy discussion about all of the books that she has written in Zambia. Hi, Jennipher. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Salina, and hi to everyone.
I'm so happy to have you. So, Jennipher, as is my custom, I always like to start every book club live with a quote from an African author. So, today's quote is from Ama Ata Aidu, a Ghanaian writer, and it's from their anthology, No Sweetness Here. And the quote is, "Humans, not places, make memories." And considering the subject of one of your books, I really thought that this captured the story in your book. It's hard to keep a secret, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So on the book club tonight, we've got Jennipher M Zulu. She's the holder of a BA in Business Administration, Zambian author and co-founder Southern Writers Bureau, a Zambian organization offering literary services for the purpose of influencing the growth and establishment of the writing sector in Zambia. She represented the country at the 21st time of the Writer Festival in South Africa and continues to collaborate with other African literary organizations like the International African Writers Association to influence the growth of the literary sector in Africa. Jennipher is the author of It's Hard to Keep a Secret and already written My Destiny, and she continues to develop her writing skill and hopes to one day make a name for herself as a renowned international writer. Some of you may not be aware, but Jennipher's also written a book called How to Publish Books. She hopes and dreams to see a vibrant Zambian writing sector, competing with and being well represented locally and internationally. And she believes that there are many great Zambian authors whose talent remains untapped, underdeveloped, and I would say underserved, and only because of the state of the writing scene as it is. So it puts a lot of context into a lot of her work with places like Southern Writers Bureau. So welcome, 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 Jennipher. It is a privilege and a pleasure to have you with us tonight. So my first question for you is, how did it all start? Your first book was published in 2011. So you've basically been writing for 10 years. Publishing and writing for 10 years. 2011, he's already written My Destiny. How did you get to that first book?
Okay. Initially, when I wrote my first title, my intention was not to publish per se. I didn't have a book in mind because I had grown up writing all my thoughts, my feelings, emotions, and everything in diaries. So it was a habit of mine that in whatever challenges I faced, or maybe if I was feeling a certain way, I would express myself in written form. So the time I wrote He's Already Written My Destiny, I was actually going through some issues, some personal issues. I was doing some introspection for my life and looking at where I was going to go from where I was. So it is those ideas that I actually penned down. I was more like actually speaking to myself, encouraging myself, kind of like thinking of ways of finding direction for myself, telling myself which way to go. And amazingly, I had penned down so many words and accumulatively so many pages, which turned out to be a book. So when I was done writing what I had written, I thought to myself that probably there are people out there who are going through similar challenges, who were thinking about their future, not knowing where tomorrow was going to take them or where they would be tomorrow. So I thought that maybe I would share that in a book. And that's when I actually started looking for means to publish the book. And by that time, I did not know any Zambian writer or any publisher. I had not approached any publisher at that time. So when I set out, it was an unexplored venture. I set out and started looking everywhere, and I eventually found some online publishers, and that was by then Create Space, which is now under Amazon as Kindle publishing. Yes, and that's how I came up with He's Already Written My Destiny.
It's so inspiring, and I love that in terms of how people are often start writing for themselves and start, out of their journals, and then they find that, this is something that will enrich other people, and then they share that, and it's actually quite brave, I always imagine, because there are some things that, you do just want to keep for yourself when you're going on those soul-searching journeys. So, I mean, that's incredible. And also your journey with Create Space that's now become Amazon, or merged with Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing for self-publishers. So, we had issues around, you wrote in your journal, and then also had to navigate this very new territory. And if we're looking at 2010, 2011, self-publishing was still only really becoming a thing then. A lot of people used to look down on it. What has the journey, what has changed since then? Because you haven't stopped writing since 2011. You've done different editions of, He's Already Written My Destiny. You changed the title, and then you've written 2 other books that you've also done second editions of. What has changed between 2011 and let's say 2017, 2018 and your recent work in terms of just, the ease of getting your work out there?
Okay, with the advancement in technology, there's definitely development. So one thing to note is that there are more publishers that have come on the scene. People now, or writers now, have so many options. It's more like a game of choice. You decide who you go to. Otherwise, there are so many. I believe there are in their hundreds or maybe close to 1,000 publishers now. So with that said, I would say there's been that improvement. So writers have the privilege and opportunity to easily publish their works. They don't have to stress so much as it was in the past. It's made much easier. Then coming to my country, although there are not so many traditional publishers, I would say Zambian writers have opted to go into the self-publishing route. They're taking the self-publishing route, and they're actually taking each part of the publishing process on their own, one step at a time. So we have so many books that have been published, but most of them are all self-published. So I would say that's what has changed the most.
Very, very interesting, very, very dynamic, because your journey has actually chronicled or moved with the changes and the shifts within the publishing industry. So I think that gives you a unique perspective or ability to give us some tips in terms of becoming authors would like to do in terms of publishing. So what advice would you give your journeys through the different stages of publishing over the last 10 years in terms of what new and budding authors should do to get their name out there and their work out there?
So for upcoming writers, upcoming authors, I would say the road has actually been made easier. Like we've already alluded to, it's much easier now to publish. And with regards publishing, there is so much information, first of all, on the internet. There is so much information. I would advise initially for authors to learn the publishing process. That is using the information that is available, written articles, and also information from blogs and other sites with regards to the publishing process. I say so, and I would actually love to emphasize, because the lack of knowledge, I think, as a Christian, I would also even cite the Bible to say, Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So the lack of knowledge in the publishing industry, or in the literary industry, will result in you actually maybe losing so much money, because there are people out there, there are unscrupulous people out there who are actually targeting authors who have little knowledge about the publishing process, so that they can take advantage of them. And many authors have actually lost out a lot on that. They would be promised to say they will publish their books and distribute their works, but at the end of the day, you find authors just crying at the end of their road, and saying that their works were not even published, but they just lost out so much money. So I would advise that authors should get a lot of information initially, learn everything that you need to know about publishing, so that at least you understand, even when you finally engage with a publisher, you understand what is going on with your works as it is being published.
That's really great advice, because that is exactly what a lot of authors need to realize. When you're self-publishing, and even if you're working with trade publishers, it's very important for you to arm yourself with knowledge. Not to be a terrible client in terms of throwing your weight around, but at least just be informed, so that you know whether you're getting a good deal or not, and definitely ask around. But thankfully, there are people like you who are seasoned, published authors who can share with people the benefit of some of the things that you've been through, and how to get around that. I'd like to just turn our conversation just briefly, before we get into some of your books, around the work that you've now been doing with other authors and creating opportunities for writers in Zambia. Earlier, when we introduced you, one of the key highlights about what you do is you are part of, or a founding member of, the Southern Writers Bureau. And to that, for many of you who might look for Jennipher online, if you look for her on Facebook, you can actually get a link to her website, where a lot of the work that she does to help authors is readily available. Things like author branding, things like tools and tips around how to publish your book. So tell us a little bit about Southern Writers Bureau.
So Southern Writers Bureau was founded in 2015. That is after I went through the many challenges that any writer will go through without so much information, without so much knowledge, that they would go through in trying to get their works published. So from 2011 to 2015, I had my share of the challenges. And so 2015, I met with another writer, and we discussed the challenges that we were actually going through. Like, for instance, for us in Zambia, we've had to outsource pretty much all the services for book publishing from South Africa, the US, UK, China, and India. So that was causing writers or rather writers had to spend so much money, especially towards shipping costs for the books once they are printed. So they had to spend so much, and it was actually a daunting task and a daunting venture to go into writing because of those costs. And when it came to editing as well, it was a similar thing. So when we met, we started discussing, or rather we discussed what possible measures we would put in place, or what steps would take to try and mitigate the challenges that we were facing. So one of the things we agreed on was that, okay, can we create a platform where as writers in Zambia we can come together initially, so that we can probably maybe share these challenges, talk about them, and also share a lot of information and ideas on probably what is out there that is probably helping writers, the tools that are there, and probably maybe some linkages that would be helpful for all of us. And that's how we started Southern Writers Bureau. That was in November of 2015. So from November 2015, we ran a number of programs and hosted a number of events. One of the events that we are known for is the Z Book Expo, which we had annually from 2015 up until COVID came in the way. So since the coming in of COVID, we have not yet had another expo, but we had Book Expo, which were which proved to be very relevant for writers, because one other thing is that our bookstores, for us to put our books in the bookstores that are there, you'd find that the bookstore owners would cut a big amount in terms of assistance fees for us to have our books in their stores. So they would cut a big percentage. But when the writers came to the expos, they would have almost 100% of their returns on the sales of their books. So writers became excited about that event, and they looked forward to the next event each year. And aside that, we also hosted workshops and author meet or rather writers meetings, where we just shared knowledge and discussed around writing. And it proved to be so effective, because since 2015 to date, we have actually seen an insurgence of more associations and other clubs that have to do with literary activities, and also even more writers are now publishing, and more people are coming into writing. Just recently, our president actually had a competition running for the poets. That was something that was actually more like a fest. And we believe that our activity in the sector has actually been a big influence for that to even happen, such that at least poets are now being recognized. And we're also making some noise, good enough noise, such that in the near future, because like a Southern Writers Bureau has been recognized. If you know of the WEAC team, Women Entrepreneur Company, it's identified Southern Writers Bureau as one of the very promising entities, because we've also added a business side to the entity. So they've recognized it as one of the most prominent entities in the country. So we are in the run for possible funding. The Tony Elumelu program also identified us as a promising entity, and we are also in the run for the same. So we believe that there is so much good that is coming up ahead.
Yeah, that's really, really impressive. Amazing. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. That's very, very impressive. And some very impressive names and partnerships that are taking place and growth that's happened in the last 5 to 6 years. And so that's really encouraging and really inspiring that people have come together to solve a problem and to fill a gap in the environment. So that's really amazing, and kudos to you. And also interesting how the writing journey started out of you asking questions about yourself and where you wanted to go, and purpose questions. And it's like you put that out there. You said, okay, I want to explore this issue about destiny, and through that, your destiny has actually been unfolding in this really remarkable way. And now it's not just you figuring out some stuff for yourself, it's you helping other people, and now that's being seen and recognized by other people. So it's really quite interesting that from those journal entries all those years ago, where you were searching and asking yourself deep questions, that you've come this far, and it's very, very exciting and interesting. And we're very excited. We are really keen to see how things develop with the Southern Writers Bureau. I think the other exciting thing is that since COVID began, but I mean, you've had this group before COVID, you had the How to Publish group on Facebook, which is titled after your book, How to Publish a Book. So do you see any opportunities or linkages there to take what was going on with Southern Writers Bureau in events and in-person things to digital now, because of what COVID has required of us in terms of changing how we deliver certain events and certain experiences? Do you think the Facebook group How to Publish a Book will be key in sort of leading the charge in the digital transformation of Southern Writers Bureau, or will they stay sort of like partner entities?
Thank you so much for actually bringing up the How to Publish a Book group. That's a happening group, I would say, because like right now we've crossed the 11,000 members threshold. So we have a lot of ideas for the group in the near future. Currently, people are just there sharing knowledge, because they're asking questions on how to publish their books, where to get editors, where to get cover designers. So currently it's just giving those answers and providing those solutions. But in the near future, we have some ideas. I won't share right away until at least we develop them. So definitely, How to Publish a Book is one of the platforms, the digital platforms that we're looking to use, especially after experiencing this COVID era, because our world has changed now, and we've been saying it's the new normal. Definitely, it's the new normal. I think we can actually find better ways of doing things using the digital platforms that are available to us. But other than the How to Publish a Book group, we also looking to develop a website where we can have writers publish their stories and also their books and poems. So we are contributing or adding another platform for writers to do that. And initially we are focusing on Africa. So we will have African writers at least share their works on that platform. And other ideas we have, having a digital or online library where people and writers, fans can access online stories for their consumption. So definitely we are looking for opportunities in the digital space.
Well, 11,000 members of a Facebook group, that is incredible. And so it just shows the hunger and the desire and the need that people have for what it is that you're putting out there. And definitely it's come at the right time, because it's almost like you were preparing for this moment in time in our history. So that's very encouraging to hear all of these plans for digital transformation, and that there are all of these new possibilities and new spaces being created because of it. So we're looking forward to a lot of the talent that will be unearthed through that process and through that journey. One of the things that I admire, I've been working in the self-publishing industry for a long time now, and one of the things I admire is people like yourself who work in the industry as specialists and advisors and strategists, but who also find the time to create their own work at the same time. And I think that's such an interesting equilibrium to keep going because, they're both creative tasks and both require being able to imagine and being able to put voice to ideas and visibility to new imaginings. But they're also very different in terms of sometimes when you are leading something and strategizing and creating a space for other writers, there's a lot of administration and there's technical managerial things that take place. And so it's been interesting to hear your story and this journey about how, most of these things started around 2015. And like, right as you started doing, we get one of your second offerings, which is It's Hard to Keep a Secret. And this was published around about sort of coinciding with that timeline, 2017. And It's Hard to Keep a Secret, for those of you who haven't read that book, it's available on Kindle, is a story about Rachel Mbewe. For one keeps a secret for many reasons, but for Rachel, it was to avoid shame and because she didn't know how to tell anyone about it. Having been sexually abused by someone so close whom she loved dearly, the realization of what was happening to her caused her world to crumble. Her spirit and will to live tumbles down with it. Everything about her cries for help, but only from within. It becomes a war she continues to fight every day of her life, and it threatens her relationships and even her very life. But there is something that happens to her along her journey, or someone that happens to her along her journey, which gives her the courage to love, and through that, the courage to deal with this awful secret. So how do we get from he's already written my destiny to it's hard to keep a secret? There are different genres, different stories. You're almost tapping into like almost a different narrative point of view and voice. And how did you manage to do that with all that you were doing with the Southern Writers Bureau and all of this helping other people to publish books?
Okay, so for It's Hard to Keep a Secret, how did I move from He's Already Written Your Destiny to It's Hard to Keep a Secret? Well, I would say amongst my books, I see He's Already Written My Destiny to be the most unique and in a way special for me because it's more about me. Although when you read it, definitely you won't actually realize that it's something to do with me. It's so personal. But for the other books, after He's Already Written My Destiny, my writing style, or perhaps the way I pick my titles and the way I write my titles is actually more of an answer to a need. So for It's Hard to Keep a Secret, there were events in my country that were being reported on a daily basis on all our news platforms, on all our news media. So the events were around rape, defilement. There were reports of fathers defiling their daughters, grandfathers defiling their daughters, neighbors, strangers. So it was, for me, I don't know, perhaps maybe there was the inspiration work of God behind it, but it was too frequent. It's like each time I turned on the TV, there was another report. And I just got an urge within myself to say, let me add my voice. Let me try to paint a picture of the victim so that perhaps when readers read the story of the victim, they probably understand the challenges that a victim goes through after the vice. So it's also hopefully an intervention against would-be perpetrators, so that also they also understand to say, if I do this, this is what I'm going to inflict on the other person. So that is what It's Hard to Keep a Secret was mainly about. It was an added voice, my personal voice against the vice. And that's how I moved to It's Hard to Keep a Secret. It was more about inspiration from events around.
Definitely. I love how you were inspired by the social issues of the day and what was happening around. And it's almost like the story came to find you when you describe yourself noticing and like these reports coming out day after day, and you're like, no, we've got to actually talk about this. What I found interesting about the few chapters I was able to read before the book club is how you took um, deep into Rachel's background. You showed us an aspect of her life where she was very innocent and very young, but throughout the book, you start to show us the stripping away of that innocent and almost an awakening to the abuse. Because when it's happening, when it's beginning, she's not even very clear herself. She's almost oblivious to it because she's so young and she's so innocent. But as she becomes aware, you begin to also see that that awareness comes with a peeling away of that innocence, and that's actually the emotional and mental violation that is happening, whilst on the outside there is a very real physical debasing and violation that's happening. And told in a way where I think sometimes we hear a lot of reports and stories on the media about some of these things, and we almost start to see victims in numbers. And these stories, it's numbers. The abusers are numbers. The victims are numbers. But you really were able to bring home the complicated family dynamics, which are some of the drivers behind why victims keep it secret and then also clothe themselves in shame, because it's not just a victim and a perpetrator. It's not just a victim and an abuser. There are also these other interconnected family relationships which make the betrayal and the violation so much worse. How did you manage to tell this story without feeling yourself defiled and violated? How did you manage to keep a balance between being the author as the observer and then telling us Rachel's story in the way that you do, that's so personal and so inviting and so subjective?
So I would say it's never really easy to put yourself in someone's shoes, in someone's experiences, someone's pain, and all. However, I would say it was grace that enabled me partly to do just that, because I imagined myself having gone through that experience, that vice happening to me. So, and I took it from that angle throughout the book. It was more about how I would react, how I would feel probably if I had reason to keep a secret. Why would I keep a secret? Why would I keep it a secret? It was those questions that I was answering throughout the book that helped me write it in the way that I wrote it. So I asked myself a lot of questions, but also I had also, like I said, I had seen so many of the happenings per se, or so many of the cases on TV, and looking at how the victims had that challenge to express themselves and explain what they were going through, and many other things, and also sometimes how they are misunderstood probably maybe because of some behavior they are portraying. So it was that again made me ask so many questions to say, what could she be going through? What could she be thinking? Why would she be behaving that way? It was those questions that helped me write the book the way I wrote it.
Powerful, powerful, powerful inspirations. And I don't know if there are any writers watching, but those are also really powerful tools and drivers in terms of if anybody's thinking about writing a book. It's follow the questions. And those questions really took you through a journey with so many rich characters, so many rich themes. What happens when we blend families, extended families, different backgrounds, and so many interesting things to unpack. And so many that we can't unpack them all, even in tonight's interview. But I hope that what we've shared has given people a taster. And if you want to read the book, definitely it's available on Kindle, a very affordable price. It's Hard to Keep a Secret by Jennipher M Zulu. And all of her other books will also be there under the same name. So Jennipher, we've got some comments from people who have joined us live and who've been watching with us. And I just want to read them out before I ask you my next question, so we've got Tatenda Tom, she's saying, thank you, Miss. Great advice there. This is on the work that you're doing with other authors and what you would recommend them to do. Sapi Bachi, doing so much work for the industry. Thank you very much. Definitely a lot of work for the industry. Tireless, amazing work. Wadzanaichi, my personal voice against the vice, powerful. You've just inspired somebody there who might be seeing some things too. And so maybe we'll hear something from there. And then Tatenda Tom again, I love how she uses a gift to bring solutions to the different issues in her community. It's really phenomenal. So those are some of our viewers that have been watching and tracking along with us on Facebook. We've also been broadcasting on YouTube. And, we're happy that you're here and that you're posting and that you're with us during this discussion. So now that we've heard from our viewers, I just want to ask you one last question on It's Hard to Keep a Secret before we close out the show with a reading from yourself. And this question, I think, relates to some of what we've heard from our viewers, which is what was the response to It's Hard to Keep a Secret from the Zambian community? Was it surprising, or was somebody, so were some of them like, yeah, it's about time we started telling the story? What was that response like, and what was that like for you processing people's different reactions and responses to you tackling such a heavy topic?
Yeah, so for It's Hard to Keep a Secret, I've actually gotten feedback that many times wows me because I never anticipated or expected to have that great impact on some people. Many people would ask me, actually many people have suspected that it's probably maybe a very personal story that because they felt that I wrote it in such great detail that they felt that probably maybe somewhere, somehow, or at a particular time, maybe I went through the same experience. Then apart from that, also there's other feedback that I got about the characters. One reader told me to say they were amazed on how I was able to get into some male characters and bring out that male side, being a female. So it's just something that I get wowed at. But the most inspiring feedback that I got recently actually was from a reader who read the book in a day. Started in the morning, and by evening they finished it. And they say they just couldn't put it down because they just wanted to know what was happening next. And it was so amazing, and they also commended how I brought out that issue and actually addressed it, that it was in such a way that was that was actually very relevant, and it's a story that needs to be out there. So I would say from this great feedback, I would say I pretty much got a big percentage. I wouldn't say 100%, big percentage of feedback that I would definitely love to get as a writer. It's always humbling, and also always it gives you, it more like gives you validation as a writer to say what you're writing is actually necessary and needed out there. And you're not just probably making noise with so many words, but you're actually making relevant noise for people out there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You're not just making noise with so many words, but it's relevant. I applaud that. Well done. I think that's definitely excellent. And I think that what this book contributes to the gender story in Africa is so important because when we're talking about these issues of sexual abuse and family violence, we don't realize that for the person going through it, it's a lifelong issue. And I think that's what you also captured in the book, is that it didn't just happen. It wasn't an event. It was like an injury and a painful moment that lingered and stayed on and was relived in ways throughout, Rachel's life. And also the bravery of survivors of this kind of abuse to speak out, but to confront it even just for themselves. And to lead normal lives because they're not leading those lives with an easy load to bear, So I think that I would applaud that. And I'm happy that you got that feedback because, if you didn't get that feedback, I was going to tell you. So amazing, amazing stuff and amazing impact and amazing voice for the gender movement, especially when we look at safety, we look at gender-based violence and all of those issues that so many women are working to eradicate, all over the world, not just in Africa. So well done. And thank you for adding your voice to the movement. So we're coming to the close of the book club live. And as per usual, one of the things I love to do is ask the authors to do a reading, a small paragraph or so from one of their books that they feel is what people need to hear right now. So Jennipher, I'm going to ask you to share with us what you've prepared for our viewers and for African women who are like you, using their voice and using their voice to speak to the issues of the day.
So I'm going to read from How to Publish a Book. How to Publish a Book, as you would expect from the title itself, it's nonfiction. It's a nonfiction title. So I've picked out the heading Exposure. Exposure, this is actually from the beginning of the book. These are some of the elements that you need as a writer to get started in the publishing process. So I did highlight a few, and those included interest, exposure, and skill. So I'm just going to read briefly for exposure. Okay. So curiosity is roused by exposure, be it curiosity for food or curiosity for an activity. Having interest alone is not enough to achieve something in life, whatever the area. One needs to be exposed. In other words, you may never get interested in something unless or until you get exposed to it. When you get exposed to something, it is only then that you get to ask them, what is it? How is it like? Or how does it feel like? What does it taste like? And how does it smell like? Questions. And that's curiosity. Once curious, interest to answer the curiosity questions builds. But this interest grows further or maybe diminishes after giving an answer to the curiosity questions. With regards writing, you are only going to develop enough interest to write, or perhaps you're going to check if you have any interest at all in writing after getting as much exposure to the art of writing as is possible. Even though many of us can say that writing has always been in our blood, we can attest to the fact that our interest was flared by more exposure to the art. This included taking literature in English at school, reading a lot of novels, and being part of literary clubs. That is for myself. So that's the bit that I picked out to read for you today.
And what a wonderful, power-packed excerpt to read, because I completely agree with that. It's all about exposure. I was taught when I studied writing and editing that reading is writing, writing is reading. If you're not engaged and reading widely many different types of work and talking about that, your writing will never improve. So wonderful, wonderful piece in terms of exposure. And what a power-packed nugget to leave any budding writers with, because, you know, I think that sometimes 80% of the task is just staying woke to, staying exposed to, and plugged into you know, what other writers are writing and reading currently. It does so much. It helps with grammar, it helps with language, it helps with vocabulary, it stimulates ideas, it sparks questions, it's, you know, so much that you can get from that. So wow, amazing. And, you know, I can't imagine what other power-packed nuggets are in that book, How to Publish a Book. So thank you so much for joining us, Jennipher. And thank you also to all of our viewers who joined us on Facebook and on YouTube tonight. We really enjoyed having you with us. And thank you again, Jennipher. I cannot wait to see what you'll be doing in the future.
Thank you as well, Selina, for the opportunity, especially to reach out to all the viewers that joined in. Thank you so much for the time that you accorded us to tune in. And I really enjoyed myself. Looking forward to more future encounters with you.
Definitely, Jennipher. Definitely, Jennipher. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, where it's a little bit warmer in Zambia than it is here in Zimbabwe. Well, at least in Harare tonight. It's quite chilly with the rain that we've just had. And to all our viewers, stay safe, stay warm, keep reading, and we'll see you again next week, Wednesday, same time, right here on the Thando channel, on Facebook and YouTube for another exciting session of the Thando Channel Book Club. Good night, and we'll see you soon.
Good night.